Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. What a week it was for Coach Juwan Howard and his team. 2 huge road wins, and Isaiah is back. Knock on wood, we'll avoid any other weird injuries down the stretch. Beat writer James Hawkins from the Detroit News joins me this week with his take. First, a few of my thoughts to get us rolling. It is great to have Isaiah Livers back. It is pretty easy to see why this team plays at a different level when he's on the floor. In every aspect of the game, he makes us a much more dangerous and complete team. That is an observation I think we can all agree on. You never like to see a player of his ability go through what can only be described as a freaky run of injuries. In a strange way, though, this team might be peaking and a more complete team because of his absence. Without him, we needed to use a combination of other young players. Worst case scenario was they would, as a group, plug the hole until he came back, but it has ended up being much better than we expected. All of a sudden, his replacement, Brandon Johns Jr., morphed into a player who contributed on a much more consistent basis and is just scratching the surface of his immense talents. And what about Austin Davis? Seriously, did anyone expect him to become a force like he has? And then there's David DeJulius. Most of the season, a nice backup option and a guy that could give Xavier a rest and not hurt us. Now Juwan is finding ways to get both of them on the floor at the same time, and you can see why. He has become a guy that can keep the offense humming, can knock down the threes, take it to the hole, and his defense has really been good. Even Colin Castleton is making solid contributions as of late. With Isaiah out, I thought the rotation would be shorter because we just could not count on many players on the bench. But the opposite has happened. The bench has become a strength. And with Isaiah back, we are now a team that has depth, and good depth at that. It's coming together at the right time, and it is fun to watch. My guest today says this team could be primed for a big finish with a nice run in the postseason. Joining us on our Game Day segment next is beat writer James Hawkins from the Detroit News, here on the Michigan Man, in partnership with our friends at SB Nation's Maize and Brew. So stay with us. Here with us again on our Game Day segment as we talk about red-hot Michigan basketball is beat writer James Hawkins from the Detroit News. Once again, James, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me back.
Well, James, at this time last week, I thought, and I think a lot of Michigan fans thought the same, you split 2 on the road, and we'd be happy, but winning at the rack without Isaiah, and then beating Purdue at Mackey Arena, that sure said something about the direction of this team and where we are, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think when the news came out that Isaiah Livers wasn't going to play at Rutgers in that first game, when he was out with that right ankle injury, I think some people might have already been chalking it up for a loss just because of how well Rutgers had been playing at home. I mean, they were 17-0 going into that game, so a lot of people probably weren't expecting to pull that out, but as we saw, kind of Xavier Simpson kind of led them through that game, even though, Rutgers coach Steve Pikiell, his whole game plan centered around slowing him down, but he was able to kind of shoulder the load throughout most of that first half, and then they were able to, just do enough and kind of find a way to pull out that win there at Rutgers. And then Purdue, we've seen how good they can be at home. You can look back at that when they kind of just pummeled Michigan State when they kind of just went on that huge run. They've done that to teams several times at Mackey Arena, and Michigan has had struggles at Mackey Arena. They hadn't won there since 2014. But I think the biggest thing you can look to for these, this recent stretch that Michigan has been on has just been the way that the defense has improved. It's kind of been the story over this past month. And Michigan really didn't shoot the ball well in either of those road games. You look at their 3-point percentages, they shot 26% at Rutgers and they shot 24% at Purdue. But in the Rutgers game, they kind of just made enough timely threes there to kind of stave off the Scarlet Knights. And then with Purdue, it was kind of Michigan had that late run at the end of the first half that kind of put them up 15. And their offense kind of didn't really do much in the second half, especially the first 10 minutes. I think they only scored 3 baskets. over the first 10 minutes, but they just leaned on their defense, and the Boilermakers really never made it close until the final 90 seconds. So, yeah, there definitely were two impressive road wins, and I think it just kind of speaks to, like I said, just how well this team is defending over this past month.
Talking about the defense, you wrote a piece the other day, and Coach Martelli said Michigan had transitioned from an offensive team to a winning team. Talk about that statement. I know he was talking about the defense, but it's really more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, early on, Michigan, with Juwan Howard being in his first year, Michigan kind of had an advantage on teams just because there's not much film out on them. I mean, no one could really look at film on Juwan Howard since this was his first head coaching stop, so there was nothing, no other places to look back on. So, I mean, they had that advantage, and like you said, yeah, I mean, they were an offensive team early on. You look at some of their numbers early on. I mean, they were shooting above 50% in a lot of their games. I mean, the Creighton game, they shot like 57%. And then in the Bahamas, I mean, they just shot their way past, Iowa State, North Carolina, Gonzaga. They were almost like an offensive buzzsaw, if you will. But yeah, I mean, once you get later in the season, especially in Big Ten play, there's more film, and there's obviously going to be much more scouting on you. Teams are, they're going to try to take away what you do the best offensively. And we kind of saw it when, Michigan kind of went through that. They had that rough patch in January where they lost 4 straight and in 5 of 6. But yeah, I think the biggest thing, Phil Martelli was talking about is that Michigan has just been able to find ways to win, no matter what. And as of late, a lot of that's been on the defense. I mean, yeah, it's just this team. Another thing is just the balance that this team has. It's not like, Michigan has to rely on, 1 or 2 guys, each game. It's seemingly, you can have a different guy stepping up each game, whether it's, a guy on the bench kind of coming in and providing a big spark, or a couple of guys stepping up. And I mean, you look at the game at Purdue, I mean, Xavier Simpson didn't make a single shot, and they still kind of won that game comfortably. So yeah, I think it's just, I think what, Phil Martelli's talking about is just that, yeah, they're just able to win in any variety of ways, and they can win, with the score being anyway. I mean, if Michigan has to score in the 70s and 80s, they can win. If they have to, muck it up and score in the 60s, 50s, they can win. I mean, we've seen that during this 5-game winning stretch. I mean, you look at, they won at Northwestern. I mean, they scored, almost 80 points. And then Indiana, Indiana shot like, 46% from the field. But, I mean, Michigan in that game, they had 5 guys scoring double figures, and they kind of shot a blistering 58%, and they still kind of blew them out by 24. So I think you can just see what this team, during this 5-game winning stretch, just the ways that this team can win. They can either, kind of flip the switch on offense, or they can kind of, clamp down on teams on defense, or, they can have different guys step up at different moments. So I think that just speaks to how this team has developed and continued to improve throughout the season.
Everyone's glad that Isaiah Livers is back, and he's saying he's not 100% yet, but it is sure hard to tell he has any issues right now, isn't it, after Saturday's performance?
Yeah, no, it was, I guess it was kind of interesting watching him go through pregame warmups, just to kind of watch to see how he was maybe handling his ankle. And it seemed like he was not trying to push off of it too much, like during pregame warmups in terms of like step backs, and he wasn't really dunking as much as he usually does. So I think for him, it was just probably just trying to manage and get through it. But I mean, yeah, he played, I think it was 36 minutes in that game. So clearly there's not much concern on that. But I mean, yeah, I don't think there's going to be much concern with him moving forward. It's just going to be a bigger thing of him just kind of, taking care of his body and kind of managing things as he moves forward. Because I mean, Michigan right now, they've had a couple off days. I mean, they don't play till Thursday against Wisconsin, so there's been a little bit of a break for him to kind of rest a little bit and hopefully get a little bit healthier. But Isaiah Livers is kind of the catalyst on both ends for this team. I mean, you can just look at the record that Michigan has when he's on the floor, when he's not on the floor. I believe they're 13-4 with him in the lineup and 5-5 without him. So I mean, definitely, Michigan's going to need Isaiah Livers on the floor if they're going to, in order for them to even be at their best.
Well, when Isaiah was injured, we needed others to step up. And, I think the mentality was at least plug the holes while he was out. But really, we got much more than that from several guys, starting with Brandon Johns Jr. Your thoughts on what Michigan has been getting from him, James?
Yeah, I mean, definitely with Isaiah out, that's led to, Brandon having to step in and fill a larger role. And I think that kind of helped. I mean, it's not one of those things where, he's going to come in for just, a few minute stretch at a time. But I mean, with that, he kind of knew when he was in the starting lineup, he was going to get, a healthy helping of minutes So it wasn't one of those things where, sometimes you get guys that, coming off the bench and, they're thirsty for a bucket, so to speak. But with him, it's kind of one of those things where he doesn't have to, press or kind of feel like he has to come in and score right away. I mean, it's kind of just one of those things where he can, just kind of let the game come to him in a sense and kind of do whatever he has to do. And that was something we've seen whenever he's been in the starting lineup. And I think going through those games where he was filling in the starting lineup kind of helped boost his confidence, and it kind of helps him whenever he has to come in, just kind of off the bench. Because I mean, when you're in that starting lineup, I mean, you're going up against obviously the other starters, but then when you're coming in off the bench, you could be facing, some of the backup dudes later in the game. So I think, just him getting a lot of those live game reps and getting those the much more minutes and all the playing time has definitely helped his development. I think it's helped him really build his confidence and kind of help show what he can bring to this team. And as we've seen, I mean, it doesn't seem like it affects him whether he's coming off the bench or in the starting lineup. I mean, you look at the Indiana game, he came off the bench and kind of just poured in 14 points. So yeah, I think that's kind of one of those things where at the time, it was bad news for Michigan, to not be to have Isaiah Livers out, but it's another one of those things where it's almost like a blessing in disguise, so to speak, just because it kind of helped Brandon Johns kind of get all this stuff under his belt and kind of helped, kind of spur his development and getting all these, kind of jumping into these bigger situations that will only, kind of help this team as it moves forward with March on the horizon.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what we're getting from him. And my surprise player of the year, Austin Davis. And, I have to say, James, I did not see this coming. His contributions have been huge, and I love the physicality he's bringing, too. He was really banging in the post on Saturday, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing Juwan Howard and a lot of his teammates talk about is just his strengths, and they talk about how he really kind of bangs down low, and he's kind of a handful even in practice. He doesn't really take it easy on anybody. But, yeah, I think, like we're alluding to over the last month, I mean, the defense has kind of been a story, but also just the play that Michigan has been getting from its bench has been another storyline over this past month. And I mean, Austin Davis has been a big part of that. I mean, he had that stretch where it was almost, he was just coming off the bench and you could almost just expect him to get 10 points, 6 boards. He had that, I think he was 26 for 29 or something. He was shooting almost 80% or something over a 5-6 game stretch. And I mean, that's huge. I mean, I think if you think back to last season, even that was kind of the one thing that Michigan didn't have was kind of that backup 5 was kind of the problem for them, or that concern the entire season. And now it's almost like there's not even a worry when, if Teskey gets in foul trouble, you can just put, Austin in there and you don't really have any concerns about the lead kind of, dwindling. I mean, at times, you put him in there and Michigan's able to kind of extend the lead with Teskey on the bench. And I mean, that's also helped Davis's play, because you look at John Teskey, and he kind of has been struggling a little bit as of late. He hasn't been, putting up the offensive numbers that, he has earlier in the season, but it hasn't been that big of a problem. Like, it's almost been just with the offensive production that Austin's been able to give. It's kind of helped offset that. And yeah, and the other thing is that stands out with his offense is just, I think his footwork is much improved,
mm-hmm.
and just his post moves down low. I mean, you watch what he's able to do. It's kind of insane. And I mean, if you look back to his first 3 years, I mean, obviously he redshirted his freshman year, but the last 2 years, you really didn't get to see that. And I think maybe the biggest thing with him is just, kind of with when he was playing under John Beilein, maybe he didn't get maybe a longer leash to kind of play through mistakes, so to speak. So maybe he goes in and he makes a mistake or something, then you kind of get that sense where you're looking over his shoulder and, you kind of get the yank, after a couple minutes or so. But I feel like that's the one thing Juwan Howard has done more so this season. He's kind of letting guys play through mistakes a little bit more. I think that's kind of helped Austin. And obviously with the level of play he's had as of late, I think it's helped his confidence a lot. And another thing too is, I mean, you think back to last season, one of the biggest issues he had was fouling. And it seemed like every time he checked in, he got 2 fouls within a minute or something like that. But he's done a much better job of defending without fouling this entire season. And I mean, you could look to him and definitely think, I mean, he might be, obviously one of the most, improved players on this team, if you're just looking back to last season. But yeah, I think his development and what he's been able to provide Michigan over this past month, can't be overstated, and it's been huge.
No, absolutely, I agree with that. Another one of the bigs that's starting to contribute is Colin Castleton. I mean, he needs to get stronger, no question about that. But he seemed like the forgotten man once Big Ten play started. But he, in the last few weeks, has made some really nice contributions too, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think with him, like you mentioned with Big Ten play, I think if you just kind of look at how the rotation's been as of late, I feel like Michigan's kind of dwindled down their rotation. I think they kind of have it set to where they kind of like to have this 8-man rotation where they kind of have Dave DeJulius as the guard off the bench, Austin Davis as the big, and then obviously Brandon Johns as kind of the 4. And Collins kind of, his playing time is kind of taking a back seat as of late. But obviously, I mean, he's shown, I mean, the big mantra with this team this year that Coach Howard preaches is, stay ready, so you don't have to get ready. And I mean, Collins has shown that at when they played at Rutgers. I mean, because Isaiah Livers was out with his ankle injury, and then Brandon Johns was in foul trouble. So then, I mean, after sitting the entire first half, Juwan didn't hesitate to turn to Collin, and I mean, Collin came up huge in that second half because that was when Rutgers, they went up 9, and they seemingly had all the momentum going for them, and then it was Collin that kind of stepped up, and he had that 3-point play. He came through his length. I mean, he was defending out on the perimeter, which is kind of a tall task for a guy his height to kind of effectively defend out on the perimeter and kind of move his feet, and that's something he was working on a lot heading into the season, is being able to guard multiple positions. Like I said, I think his playing time is kind of taking a backseat just because I think Michigan kind of figured out the rotation that they kind of want. But I think it speaks volumes to Collin that, I mean, he can sit there and his playing time, I think he didn't even play in 2 of the past 5 games heading into the Rutgers game, but he was kind of thrown into there. Juwan Howard just still had his trust in him, and he threw him in there. And I mean, speaks volumes to Collin that he's able to kind of step up and deliver in a key moment like that when Michigan's on the road and they were kind of on the ropes of, kind of get a run out of there almost if Rutgers is able to build a double-digit lead there. But, his contribution he had in that Rutgers game was huge, and it kind of helped Michigan kind of turn the tide in that game and pull out that win.
Well, I was thinking on Saturday when I was watching the game, I hope we appreciate the kind of point guard play we're getting right now because time's running out for Xavier Simpson, but he has been a maestro, especially down the stretch, and is just playing his best basketball, I think, James.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at the Purdue game. I mean, like I said, he went 0 for 10 from the field, but that might have been one of the best 0 for 10 games you could see in a while just because he was still able to – he still controlled the game even though his shot wasn't going down. I mean, obviously Purdue, they were letting him shoot from 3, and I think he was 0 for 5 from three-point range. But, I mean, he still impacted the game and controlled the game the entire way. I mean, Michigan only had 3 turnovers in that game, and I think that just speaks volumes to the job Xavier did controlling the game and running the offense for Michigan. And like I said earlier, too, in the game at Rutgers, I mean, Steve Peichel mentioned that their defensive game plan centers around slowing down Xavier Simpson, and you could see how they kind of changed up their defensive strategy against him in the first game at Madison Square Garden. I mean, they had 2 guys chasing him, they were going over the screens, and that kind of plays to Michigan's strength, and he was obviously able to kind of carve up Rutgers just with his passing and kind of get the offense humming there, and they were able to kind of get whatever they wanted. But then in the game at Rutgers, I mean, they started sinking under screens and kind of daring him to shoot, and we saw what Xavier did. I mean, he made those first 2 threes, and Michigan kind of jumped out on him and kind of got rolling early on, and then they kind of had to change up their strategy against him. But I think that, yeah, I mean, you can just look at those Rutgers games and you can see, I mean, Steve Peichel's kind of game planning around Xavier, but he still had no answer for him. I mean, Xavier kind of shouldered the load, both scoring and facilitating, to kind of help Michigan kind of stay even with him. I think they went down one at halftime in that game, but yeah, he kind of carried Michigan to both of those wins, the one at Rutgers and at Madison Square Garden. But definitely, I mean, he could be one of those guys where they talk about, seniors kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe that's happening with him right now. But I mean, this is the time of the year where you kind of need your your players to kind of take that next step, and Xavier has certainly been doing that for Michigan.
And you need your point guard to hit his free throws late in the game, and he's been doing pretty well at that too, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that was always the huge struggle with him. That was, last year, or 2 years ago, I think it was when he first came in. That was kind of his big Achilles heel, was kind of not coming through in those late game situations and kind of splitting the free throws. But I mean, that hasn't been a big problem for him. I think he missed a few at Rutgers, but it was never when the lead was really severely in danger. But that's kind of been one of those things that hasn't been a problem for him, this season or last season really. this is, that the whole Hack-a-Simpson thing, the whole Hack-a-Simpson strategy kind of hasn't paid off for an opponent in a while. And I think that just speaks to, Xavier's, the hard work he had put in, working on his free throws to kind of help shore up that area.
Well, another thing I think we have to appreciate as we head down the home stretch is what we're getting from David DeJulius. He's become more than just a good backup for Xavier, hasn't he, James?
Yeah, I mean, he's had to step up in a couple key areas. I mean, there was the game at Nebraska where obviously where Michigan was without Xavier when he was serving that 1-game suspension. Then the game at Northwestern where, Xavier got in really foul trouble. I think he sat the last 12 minutes of the first half. And I mean, those were games where Dave, he kind of had to kind of be more of a point guard. He had to be more of a facilitator. And I mean, he speaks to that's not something he's kind of used to. I mean, he's more of a scorer. He kind of has more of a scoring mentality. So that was kind of a different kind of a responsibility he kind of had to shoulder in those games. But I mean, you could see, I mean, at Northwestern, I mean, he did a good job doing it. I mean, I think he finished with a career high 7 assists in that game. So that was kind of a good thing to see from him, that he can, kind of run the offense and facilitate for other guys instead of, just looking for his own shot. But with that said, I mean, he is a guy who can clearly get his own bucket. He can, kind of create his own space and kind of get his own shot whenever he needs to. And he's been another guy. I mean, even when Isaiah was out, he's another guy who kind of had to step up, because there was, Michigan obviously at times they went to that 3-guard lineup with Xavier, Dave, and Eli. So he obviously had to step up in those bigger minutes. But yeah, Dave has been a guy who throughout the season he can come in, and obviously he's almost like a microwave. He can get hot in a second, and he's shown that. I mean, with his offense, he can kind of change the complexion of a game, in just a matter of minutes. He obviously had a big stretch too in that Purdue game. You think about when Purdue kept threatening to cut the lead to single digits there, and he had that one stretch where he kind of skied up over a couple big guys down in the paint. He kind of tipped in that kind of a missed 3-pointer to kind of push the lead back to 13, and then right back on the other end, he drew a foul on Purdue for a moving screen, and that kind of helped Michigan kind of distance the lead again, because I think they scored on that following possession and push it back to 15. So yeah, I think David throughout the entire season, he's kind of been a huge spark coming off the bench, and he's just been a guy that anytime Michigan calls on him, he can kind of come in and impact the game. And obviously he does that the best, though, with his scoring ability.
Well, I think most of us realized it might take Franz Wagner some time to develop. I mean, he's a freshman, he's in a new country, but it seems to be happening right before our eyes, doesn't it, James?
Yeah, definitely. Phil Martelli, after the Purdue game, he was talking about how he still doesn't think his 3-point shot is kind of fully there. He kind of still thinks that when Franz fractured his right wrist, before the season, that kind of set him back. And he was kind of talking about how he thinks he can shoot it better from 3-point range than he has shown. And I think on the season, I mean, he's only, 30% on the year. He's only made at least three threes in 4 games this season. And obviously when, coming in here, I mean, that 3-point shooting and being kind of the perimeter threat was kind of the thing that Franz was known for. Obviously coming from overseas, from Germany. I think, with Alba Berlin last season, he was like a 40% 3-point shooter. And I mean, obviously his numbers not there this season, but I think that just kind of speaks to Phil Martelli's optimism that, his numbers will eventually, level out and kind of get to the level where, they think that he can get to. But yeah, I mean, obviously it was going to take time for him to kind of get back into things, because I mean, like we know, back in the Bahamas, he kind of just got thrown into things. He kind of got thrown into the fire, logging heavy minutes right off the bat in 3 straight games. So yeah, I mean, it's just going to take time for a guy to get into game shape and kind of get into the flow of things. But I mean, I think as of late, it seems like, he's kind of just been playing his best basketball at the right time. But the thing with Franz, though, too, is like he's been logging heavy minutes, throughout the entire year. He's playing, 30-plus minutes. But the one thing with him is, like, you don't have to worry about, him not making an impact, because even if his shot's not exactly falling, he's still finding ways to make a difference in the game. And I think, one thing that probably gets overlooked a lot is his defense, just because he does a lot of little things that kind of doesn't show up in the box score. I think one of the things he does really well is he's able to kind of just get his hand in passing lanes, and he gets a lot of those deflections where he's like not even looking at the ball. He just kind of just sees the guy he's defending is kind of maybe expecting the pass, and he kind of just gets his hand out there and he kind of deflects either a bounce pass or whatever. And same thing, like if a guy's cutting to the basket, he does a good job of deflecting passes, either off the bounce or lob passes. And those are little things that often, get overlooked and kind of really don't show up in the stat sheet. And another thing is, just his defensive instincts have been really impressive just to watch, just kind of knowing, maybe when to help, when to rotate, if kind of, there's a miscommunication, just kind of throwing a body on a guy, and he's improved a lot as a rebounder too. I mean, if you look at his rebounding over the past month, it seems like almost every game he's getting at least 7-8 rebounds. I mean, you think back to, when his brother was here, Mo was almost allergic to rebounding, and that's hasn't been the case with Franz at all this season. But yeah, it seems like as of late he's kind of picked up his play, and I think if he's able to kind of get to his 3-point shot down, kind of be more of a consistent threat from there, I think he's just going to be that much more of a problem for opponents, because as we've seen too, he's been able to kind of almost get at the rim at will ever since he's kind of been in the lineup. And there was times early on where he kind of had a little bit of a trouble finishing at the rim, but as of now, it just seems like he can kind of get to the hoop and drive and finish at the rim. He's shown he's an effective slasher. I think he's leading Michigan starters in 2-point shooting. I think he's at 57%. So yeah, if he's able just to kind of get a reliable outside shot, I think that's just going to make this team even more dangerous.
Let's talk about Jon Teske for just a minute, James. I mean, he's exceeded expectations easily in his career. I think we all agree on that. Right now seems to be struggling at times on offense, especially at close range. Do you think that's concerning at all?
Yeah, I think with Jon, kind of everybody kind of goes through, it seems like everybody goes through a slump at some time. And I think it's just he's kind of facing that right now. And I mean, obviously, last season he was kind of not like the main guy. Like, I mean, he was more so like, kind of like the fourth, fifth option on offense a lot of times. Because obviously, last year Michigan had Iggy, Jordan, and Charles kind of more so shouldering the offensive burden. Obviously, Juwan Howard made a point of emphasis that he wanted Jon Teske to kind of be the go-to scorer for this team, and he wanted to kind of run the offense through him and through the post more. So I think he's kind of been, I mean, he's kind of going through this more so for the first time, kind of being one of the first options. But yeah, I think with his offensive struggles, I think what Jon pointed out is that he feels like teams are maybe they're putting more of a focus on kind of pushing him further away from the block. So when he's catching the ball, he obviously is further away and he has more work to do, as opposed to, if he's able to establish himself in the post and he can maybe just take, one dribble and turn and he's kind of right there. So that's one thing he's talked about, is that, teams are forcing him out further. He has more work to do. So, obviously if he takes like a couple dribbles and turns, obviously his shot's more difficult just because he's further away from the rim. And I mean, you got to remember too that Jon was never really a back to the basket kind of guy. I mean, under Coach Beilein, he was more so of a pick and pop, pick and roll type of threat. He was more of a kind of just dove to the basket a lot more. He wasn't, really put in these post-up situations a lot. So it's been kind of a transition for Jon this season, just kind of, getting comfortable playing with his back to the basket. And obviously, doing something that you're not, completely used to or haven't been doing, the last, couple seasons. I mean, obviously there's going to maybe be a rough patch or, kind of some hiccups that come along with that. And I think that's just kind of been what's happening as of late. And I mean, it's only a matter of time before he hopefully snaps out of it. I mean, at Purdue, he kind of had a couple shots go down, but yeah, it just seems like at times maybe it seems like he's rushing it a little bit more. Maybe he's off balance and it's not going up strong. But he just kind of pointed out that he thinks that he just has to do a better job of doing his work early and kind of establishing his position in the post better. And it's also on, the guys on the outside too, the post feeders, kind of putting him in better positions as well, because there have been times where, he's kind of down in the post and he has position, but, they just kind of have a pass that maybe is off target and kind of just like, moves him off the block a little bit more to where he has to do more work in. And Jon Teske has been facing, more double teams too, so that plays into it as well. But I think it's just one of those things. I think when you're kind of more of a focal point on offense and you're kind of teams are probably scouting him a lot more than they were last season. I mean, obviously you're kind of going to go through those slumps and stretches, and I think he's kind of just in his funk right now. But yeah, I think hopefully eventually he'll snap out of it, but I just think it's kind of one of those things, one of those just slumps he's kind of dealing with right now.
What's the latest on Eli Brooks and his injury? I haven't seen much about that since Saturday.
We hadn't had availability yet before Thursday's game, but yeah, it just seems to be a nose injury. Just how serious of a nose injury it is, we don't know. As far as if it's broken or not, we don't know. It sounded like Eli could have returned to the game at Purdue, but Juwan Howard just said, that he was just going to hold him out because he said, his health was more important than him kind of coming back in. But yeah, we don't know as of yet. It just seems like all we know is that it's a nose injury, but I think it's a positive sign that he could have returned to the game if Juwan needed him. But I'm sure we'll get a diagnosis here on probably on Wednesday before Thursday's game as to, I guess, what his how severe of an injury it is or exactly what happened. But as of that, we don't know. We just know that, he kind of had that head-to-head collision and he was kind of bleeding from his nose and he had to leave and go back to the locker room. But as far as how serious, we don't know yet.
Well, two big ones this week. So a final question for you, James. It's Wisconsin at home, of course, on Thursday. Not going to be easy. Then Ohio State down in Columbus, and they're playing good basketball again. I don't know if it's as well as they were early in the season, but they're definitely improving. Your thoughts on both of those teams and what Michigan has to do to get W's against both?
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin, they're kind of one. I mean, if you look at as of late, I think they're the other quote unquote hot team that's kind of in the Big Ten. I mean, they've won 4 straight, and obviously Michigan's 5 straight. And, I mean, they've kind of what they've been doing as of late has kind of been impressive because obviously they lost, one of their top players, kind of transferred out with King, and but yeah, I mean, Wisconsin's always kind of that physical team, and we know that how they kind of play. They're kind of that slow, grinded out team. So obviously with Michigan in that game, I think, obviously taking care of the ball and limiting Wisconsin to just, one shot per possession is going to be huge in that game. But obviously Michigan is going to have the advantage of home court. So yeah, I think, like I said, I think just as long as Michigan's able to take care of the ball and kind of limit Wisconsin to one shot per possession, I think that Michigan will probably fare well in that game. And then at Ohio State, obviously that's the rematch with obviously Michigan lost by 2 with that late flagrant foul on Xavier Simpson, kind of that heartbreaking loss. So yeah, I mean, Ohio State's kind of a weird team to kind of really put your finger on. I mean, they seem to play well against good competition, but then they can also kind of fall and play to the level of other teams below them. So they're kind of a weird team to kind of put your finger on, especially during Big Ten play. But yeah, I think that's just going to be one of those games where Michigan's going to have to try to contain Caleb Weston, because I think if you look back to that first game, he was kind of a problem for Michigan. So if they can kind of keep him at bay and not let him get in a rhythm, I think that will kind of play well for them there. I think obviously with Michigan here in these last 4 games, I think as long as they just defend home and kind of win these last 2 home games, I think they'll be in pretty good shape. But for the Ohio State game, obviously it's going to be the return for Xavier Simpson and John Teske going back to Ohio. So maybe there'll be some motivation for those guys, obviously, to pull out that win, and obviously for them to get revenge against them. But so yeah, for Wisconsin, I think the keys are just to kind of take care of the ball, because we know that Wisconsin likes to play that grinded out type of style and kind of limit them to one shot. And then Ohio State, I think the big thing is just, like I said, I think just kind of keying on Caleb Weston, because he was the guy that kind of, gave Michigan problems in that first rematch. So if they're able to maybe do those things in those 2 meetings, I think they'll probably have a good shot of kind of extending this win streak to 7 wins rolling into March.
Well, let's hope so. Our guest on our game day segment this week has been beat writer James Hawkins from the Detroit News. It's going to be a fun couple of weeks, final stretch drive, and then the Big Ten tournament, and of course the NCAA tournament coming soon. So, James, as always, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and we look forward to our next visit.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Quick Hits is next as we wrap it up for another week here on The Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. On Quick Hits today, it was announced on Monday football will not be taking an international trip this spring due to the coronavirus outbreak. We don't know for sure where they were planning to go, but the decision was made by university officials to play it safe and stay home. The team will take part in community volunteer activities instead. In other news, women's basketball used a 7-0 run in the middle stages of the fourth quarter after Michigan State took a 49-48 lead to regain control en route to a 65-57 win over the Spartans on Sunday evening at the Breslin Center. With the win, Michigan secured a season sweep of the Spartans for the first time since the 2014-15 season. Coach Kim Barnes-Arico's team will close out the road portion of its regular season schedule Thursday, traveling to Penn State for a 7 p.m. game. We are 18-9 overall, 9-7 in Big Ten play. Hockey had their senior night celebration spoiled by Notre Dame as they fell 3-0 on Saturday at Yost Ice Arena. The Fighting Irish scored 3 goals in the third period to secure the shutout. The Irish swept the weekend series, winning on Friday night also. The Wolverines will close out the regular season on the road as they travel to Minneapolis on Friday and Saturday to take on the Minnesota Golden Gophers in a critical conference series. Friday's game will begin at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, and Saturday's contest will start at 5 p.m. Central. We are 15-14-3 overall, 10-10-2 in Big Ten play. The number 8 ranked University of Michigan softball team sacrificed a 4-run lead and was doomed by a pair of late-inning home runs as Liberty earned a 6-5 walk-off win in the Gamecock Invitational finale on Sunday morning at Carolina Softball Stadium. It was Michigan's 3rd loss of the weekend and just the second win this season for Liberty, who has played 10 games against ranked opponents this season, including 7 against top 10 teams. Michigan will head west for its annual spring break trip, kicking off the 10-day trip with a 5-game appearance at the annual Judy Garman Classic this weekend in Fullerton, California. U of M will open the tournament Friday with a 1:30 game against Loyola Marymount at Anderson Family Field. We are still off to a good start with plenty of time to get the bats going. Our record heading into this week's action is 10-3. Number 1 baseball fell behind early and never recovered, falling 9-2 against UConn in the finale of its 3-game series at the New York Mets training complex. We dropped 2 of 3 to UConn in that weekend series. We will head west to start the California spring break road trip this week with a 3-game series against Cal Poly Friday through Sunday in San Luis Obispo. The road swing will see Michigan play 8 games in 10 days with contests against the Mustangs, Stanford, Cal, and Pepperdine. We are 4-3 heading into this week's action. That will do it for another show. As you can tell, it's a busy time on the Michigan athletics scene, and we will be right back here next week with more for you, so please join us. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go Blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!